This is America in the Morning. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Monday, January 24th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning. Firings for federal workers continue by the Trump administration, and the president has given a pink slip to the nation's top military commander. Donna Warder has that.
It was a President Trump MAGA love fest at this year's CPAC convention just outside the nation's capital. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Julie Walker has the latest on the serious health issues facing Pope Francis.
On Wall Street, stocks begin the final week of February trading this morning after a sell-off last week. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
A federal judge blocked sweeping executive orders from President Donald Trump for programs promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
Ford is recalling about 240,000 SUVs due to a problem with seatbelt anchors. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The Trump administration says they're putting all but a fraction of the staffers at the U.S. Agency for International Development on leave worldwide, which comes after Elon Musk said federal employees must justify their job for the past week in an email or risk dismissal. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is defending the Trump administration's firing of the nation's senior military officer. The latest out of Washington from correspondent Donna Warder.
Zelensky should come to the table because this economic partnership is an important thing for the future of his country, and we hope that he will very soon.
But fair to say, Russia attacked unprovoked into Ukraine 3 years ago tomorrow.
Fair to say it's a very complicated situation.
Okay, we'll leave it there.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said on Fox News Sunday that there's nothing unprecedented about President Donald Trump firing Air Force General C.Q. Brown Jr. as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
The president deserves to pick his key national security and military advisory team. There are lots of presidents who've made changes, from FDR to Eisenhower to H.W. Bush to Barack Obama, who fired or dismissed hundreds of militaries during his term.
Brown was just the second black general to serve as Joint Chiefs chairman, with 16 months in the post. Hegseth says the dismissals of 6 3-star and 4-star generals on Friday are a reflection of the president wanting the right people around him.
There were 6 3- and 4-star generals that were moved into different positions or retired on Friday night. Of 160 3- and 4-star generals, this is a reflection of the president wanting the right people around him to execute the national security approach we want to take.
Retired General George Casey, who was commander of U.S. and multinational forces in Iraq under Republican President George W. Bush, calls the firings extremely destabilizing.
President Trump has given another set of lawful orders, and they will be followed. If they're not followed, and all these orders are in keeping with the Constitution and norms inside the military, if they're not followed, then those officers will find the door. And that's not a tough calculation. We feel really good about the direction the Pentagon is headed under President Trump. We're going to focus on warfighting and lethality and accountability and be the most transparent Pentagon that folks have seen in a long time, which is why I explain these things on a regular basis.
Donna Warder, Washington.
We're now 30 days into the new administration. CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, has wrapped up their gathering in Washington. President Trump delivered the keynote speech. John Stolnis has a recap from Washington.
Joe was the worst, and believe me, I have to clean up the mess. I'm cleaning up the mess, and it is a mess on the border with inflation. To go over every single thing he touched turned to okay.
Speaking before a crowd of enthusiastic supporters, the president eviscerated his predecessor, Joe Biden, and delivered a campaign-style speech that touched on some of the changes he and his Department of Government Efficiency have been undertaking since he came into office a little more than a month ago.
And we've also effectively ended the left-wing scam known as USAID. The agency's name has been removed from its former building, and that space will now house agents from Customs and Border Patrol.
On Ukraine and Russia, the president lamented the money spent by the United States to help Ukraine defend themselves and once again pushed for Ukraine to pay America back by agreeing to a rare minerals economic deal.
So we're asking for rare earth and oil, anything we can get. But we feel so stupid. Here's Europe. And, you know, it affects Europe. It doesn't really affect us.
On Friday, Trump's national security advisor, Michael Waltz, declared Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky will make the deal.
President Zelensky is going to sign that deal. And you will see that in the very short term. And that is good for Ukraine.
Other administration officials, such as Elon Musk and Vice President J.D. Vance, spoke over the 3 days of the conference. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt found out moments before taking stage she and the administration were being sued by the Associated Press for being banned from the briefing room after they refused to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America.
So I wanted to get the White House counsel on the phone before taking this stage to see what I can and cannot say.
I really can't say anything.
But look, we feel we are in the right in this position. And I said in my first briefing at the podium, we are going to ensure that truth and accuracy is present at that White House every single day.
A straw poll that is conducted at the end of every CPAC gathering found President Trump received a 99% approval rating from the more than 1,000 attendees. John Stolnis, Washington.
Prayers for the Pope when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning, and for the last Monday of February 2025, AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy has the nation's forecast.
Heavy rain hit the northwest U.S. this past weekend, with only the highest elevation seeing snow. This system will continue inland in a far less impactful capacity, with some rain and snow showers through the northern Rockies into Montana. Another storm, however, is going to quickly follow today, with rain building along the coast, starting this morning in southern Oregon into northern California, and then filling northward through Washington this afternoon. This system will spread another 1 to 2 inches of rain along the coast, and it will be colder, allowing for snow to form in the Cascades, especially later today and tonight. Additional snow showers will build into the northern Rockies as well. Snow amounts could exceed 6 inches by Tuesday morning. The rest of the west into the southwest will be largely dry today, with many southern areas having plenty of sunshine. Afternoon temperatures will range from the 50s and 60s in Northern California into Nevada and Utah, and then warm to the mid and even upper 80s in Southern California into Arizona. That milder weather will also build into the Plains states today. There will be a weak area of low pressure spawning a few rain showers through North and South Dakota into Minnesota. Highs in North Dakota into Minnesota will still be in the 30s and 40s, but warm quickly into the 50s, 60s, and 70s in the Central Plains and 80s in a good portion of western Texas. That milder trend will also continue into the Great Lakes, Northeast, and Middle Atlantic. Still some 30s in the north, but reaching into the 40s and 50s through the Great Lakes and Middle Atlantic. That's the weather across America. Heavy rain and thunderstorms will dampen the Tampa area with a high of 74. Helena, Montana will have a mild day with sunshine and gusty breezes with a high of 48. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. The Archbishop of New York City told his congregation that Pope Francis is facing death and is asking the world to pray for him. The latest from correspondent Julie Walker.
The Vatican says Pope Francis is in critical condition after suffering a severe respiratory crisis related to his asthma. At Sunday Mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, Cardinal Timothy Dolan prayed for him.
Our Holy Father, Pope Francis, is in very, very fragile health and probably close to death. As we pray with and for him,
and the Archbishop of New York says,
in a world that seems driven for money and accumulation, he urges simplicity of life and savors the company of the poor.
Outside the Pope's hospital in Rome, the faithful are also praying. The Vatican says the 88-year-old is still receiving high flows of oxygen from that prolonged asthmatic crisis and blood transfusions. I'm Julie Walker.
The death toll in Kentucky has risen to 21 following a double dose of severe weather events. Correspondent Clayton Neville has an update.
Deadly flooding and freezing temperatures wreaked havoc on parts of Kentucky last week.
We have hundreds of families that have been impacted, that have lost so much.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear has been advocating for victims and for survivors and urging Americans who can help to donate to a relief fund.
First thing we're going to do is pay for every funeral, because the first thing we do is mourn together. And no family should have to worry about that cost after tragically losing a loved one to a natural disaster.
This week, the governor took to social media to announce the 21st death in the recent string of deadly weather in his state. Hypothermia, the cause of some of the nearly 24 deaths and other victims swept away in floodwaters, including a mother and her young child. Some residents in Kentucky still without power today, and recovery from the recent storms is just beginning. Temperatures expected to warm up this week.
The new median price of a home in the U.S. may surprise you. We'll have that and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a Friday sell-off for stocks. It was a losing week last week, too. Investors worried about inflation, which is up 4 months in a row. Walmart out with that warning about this year's profit as consumers pull back their spending. And also behind Friday's selling, a report that China found a new novel coronavirus. Vaccine stocks did pop on that news. Travel stocks dropped.
Not too concerned based on this single report. They sample viruses from bats constantly over there, and they find novel viruses from time to time. And sometimes these novel viruses that they stumble upon harbor very concerning features. So this is not an uncommon finding. Probably the most concerning part of this story is that they did this experimentation in a low-security BSL-2 lab. And this was the Wuhan Institute of Virology. This is the same institute in Wuhan that has been implicated in potential lab leak related to SARS-CoV-2. So to see them still experimenting with novel viruses in a BSL-2 lab, that's not too reassuring. But from this particular strain that they found, I don't have any concerns that this is going to cause an imminent risk unless they have a laboratory accident. And one would hope that since they published these findings, they're now taking precautions to treat this strain with greater caution.
Former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb on CNBC. Home sales dropped sharply in January and prices hit an all-time high for that month.
The median price of a home sold in January was $396,900, up 4.8% year over year. That is the highest price ever for January. Existing home sales in January fell 4.9% month to month. That is a much steeper decline than the street was expecting.
CNBC's Diana Olick. Dow component United Health shares tanked on Friday on a Wall Street Journal report that says the Department of Justice is investigating its Medicare billing practices.
United is a different animal because they have a provider or a doctor business as well as an insurance business, whereas most of the other companies do not. So the allegations here basically pertain to that doctor network overcharging patients for various procedures they may or may not need, and that's enabling the company to go out there and get more money for the government for those procedures, whatever they may be. But we'll see as more details emerge here.
That's Mizuho's Jared Schultz on CNBC. Little good news for would-be homebuyers who went looking over the weekend at open houses. The average rate on a 30-year mortgage slipped below 7% on Friday to 6.89%. Of course, your rate depends on your credit score and your down payment. That rate is according to Mortgage News Daily. On today's watch list, earnings are coming from Domino's Pizza, Hims & Hers, Public Storage, and Zoom Video. The NFL Scouting Combine begins in Indianapolis today.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. Judge halts Trump's DEI stance when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Thanks for listening. You're with America in the Morning. A federal judge has blocked a recent executive order by President Trump regarding DEI. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
A judge in Baltimore found that they likely violated free speech rights and granted an injunction blocking them as a lawsuit plays out. Trump signed an order on his first day in office directing all federal agencies to terminate equity-related grants or contracts. The city of Baltimore and higher education groups sued. They argue the executive orders are unconstitutional and an overreach of the president's authority. The Trump administration has argued that the president was targeting only DEI programs that violate federal civil rights laws. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
Automaker Ford is announcing a massive safety recall. Here's Lisa Dwyer with details.
Ford is recalling about 240,000 Explorer and Lincoln Aviator SUVs due to a problem with seatbelt anchors that were improperly secured. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, a loose seatbelt or seatbelt buckle may not properly restrain an occupant during a crash. The Explorers and Aviators in question are model years 2020 and 2021. Owners are expected to be notified by Ford in late March and will be instructed to take their vehicles into a Ford or Lincoln dealer for inspection. If the anchor bolts are found to be improperly secured, the components will be replaced for free. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
America in the Morning for Monday, February 24th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour, Elon Musk facing federal worker backlash.
President Trump has abruptly fired the nation's top military officer, Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The president of Ukraine has a pledge surrounding NATO. I'm Clayton Neville.
A Pennsylvania community in shock over the shooting death of a local police officer. I'm Bob Brown. That story just ahead.
Boat capsizes off New York City. Dan Bongino's new job. And Detroit still reeling from a massive water main break.
Big tech looking for more big power. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
Who were the big winners at the SAG Awards this weekend? I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. A storm impacting states along the Gulf of America. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
A storm is moving through the southeast today, particularly in Florida. There will be some heavy rain and thunderstorms moving along the Gulf Coast first thing this morning and then shifting into South Florida later this morning into the afternoon. These areas have been dry lately, so this will be largely a beneficial rain, but will also dampen some outdoor plans for a good part of the day. The other main storm across the U.S. is moving into the northwest today after having received a significant period of rain over the weekend. Some areas had more than 7 inches of rain. This system will produce rain along the coast this morning, stretching from southern Oregon and northern California, and then filling northward into the rest of Washington this afternoon. It will bring another 1 to 2 inches of rain along the coast, but it will also bring some colder air in the Cascades, which will allow for some snow later today and tonight. Additional snow showers will also build into the Rockies as well. Snow amounts could exceed 6 inches by Tuesday morning. The rest of the west into the southwest will be largely dry today, with southern areas seeing plenty of sunshine. Afternoon temperatures will be in the 50s and 60s from northern California into Nevada and Utah, and then warm into the mid and upper 80s in southern California into Arizona. And that milder weather, again, is spreading into the plain states today. There will be a weak area of low pressure spawning a few rain showers through North and South Dakota into Minnesota. Highs in North Dakota into Minnesota will be in the 30s and 40s, but it will warm quickly into the 50s, 60s, and 70s in the Central Plains, and even 80s in a good portion of western Texas. That milder weather will also continue into the Great Lakes and Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Still some 30s in the north, but reaching into the 40s and 50s through the Mid-Atlantic and Great Lakes. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Elon Musk has given federal workers a deadline to explain what they accomplished over their past work week. As correspondent Donna Warder reports, there are some who are calling Musk's actions illegal, including Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, who told CBS Face the Nation that the scope of Musk's actions violate the Constitution.
What we are witnessing are illegal actions by Elon Musk. And a number of courts, as you know, have issued temporary restraining orders on their efforts to seize important private information, but also on their overall conduct. So what the head of management, the State Department, said is Elon Musk doesn't have the authority to require State Department employees to answer these questions. That has to happen in the chain of command.
Elon Musk, President Donald Trump's cost-cutting chief, has emailed hundreds of thousands of federal workers, telling them to explain with 5 bullets what you accomplished last week and CC your manager. Musk posted on X that failing to respond to the request will be taken as a resignation.
You've got Elon Musk taking a chainsaw to the federal government and important services. And there's no Article 4 in the Constitution that gives Elon Musk that authority. And the way that he's been sort of, quote, delegated this authority is illegal. And the actions he's taking are illegal, and we need to shut down this illegal operation.
Federal employees, including some judges, court staff, and federal prison officials, received the 3-line email with the demand, which did not mention resignation. The deadline to reply was listed as Monday at 11:59 p.m. Some agencies have told employees that they don't have to comply. An email from the State Department's acting Undersecretary for Management says the State Department will respond on behalf of the department. No employee is obligated to report their activities outside of their department chain of command. Labor union leaders have condemned the ultimatum and are threatening legal action. I'm Donna Warder.
Questions are being raised by Democrats over the dismissal of the nation's top military officer, which comes after the firings of the Coast Guard's commandant, as well as the top admiral in the United States Navy. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports that the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, is planning on job cuts for a number of federal military workers.
President Trump has abruptly fired the nation's top military officer. It's part of the president's effort to rid the Pentagon of leaders who back diversity and equity in the ranks. Air Force General C.Q. Brown Jr. was a history-making fighter pilot.
The yeas are 98. The nays are 0.
Confirmed nearly 5 years ago as the military's first black service chief.
General Brown is also a warfighter who's commanded in Europe, the Middle East, and the Indo-Pacific.
And fewer than 2 years ago as Joe Biden's Joint Chiefs Chairman. Just the second black officer in that role after Colin Powell. In a social media post announcing the firing, the president called Brown an outstanding leader. But Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth has taken aim before at Brown, who had spoken out about George Floyd's killing and the pressures of being a black officer. Hegseth said in November Brown had to be fired. Earlier, he'd questioned whether Brown was in the job because he was black. As he walked into the Pentagon for his first day on the job last month, Hegseth was asked if he planned to fire Brown.
Standing with him right now. Look forward to working with him.
Hegseth has now also announced the firing of Admiral Lisa Franchetti, the Navy's top officer and the military's first female service chief. The president had earlier fired Admiral Linda Fagan as Coast Guard Commandant. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A dozen leaders from Europe and Canada have arrived in Ukraine's capital city to mark the 3rd anniversary of the Russian invasion. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said in a speech that the U.S. relationship with Ukraine will prioritize empowering Europe to its own responsibility over their own security. Over the weekend, the president of Ukraine said if it leads to peace, he'll give up his role as his country's leader. Correspondent Clayton Neville has more.
Today marks 3 years since Russia invaded Ukraine, and over the weekend, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that he would step down if it meant Ukraine could join NATO.
Якщо вам дуже потрібно, щоб я залишив свій пост, я готовий.
Друга історія. Можу поміняти це на НАТО.
Zelensky's comments follow the largest single drone attack of the war. Ukrainian officials say nearly 270 drones were launched into Ukraine. There were casualties. The Trump administration urging Zelensky to come to the table and put an end to the war right now.
The president is focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's stopping the killing and the destruction across Ukraine and ensuring an enduring peace. So both sides are going to make a lot of claims, and the president has very directly engaged both sides in real time. There's bilateral negotiations with Russia, which, by the way, no one else has been able to do. Joe Biden was never able to bring Russia to the table for actual peace talks.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth spoke with Fox News Sunday.
Because this economic partnership is an important thing for the future of his country, and we hope that he will very soon.
But fair to say, Russia attacked unprovoked into Ukraine 3 years ago tomorrow.
Fair to say it's a very complicated situation.
Hegseth told Fox there will be bumps in the road.
America, more than any other country in the world, has invested in helping Ukraine defend itself. Now it's time for peace, and that's what the president is dedicated to.
Zelensky showing a renewed focus on garnering support from European leaders and still hesitant on a U.S. proposed deal to give the United States access to Ukraine's rare minerals. Zelensky told reporters he's not signing something that he says will have to be repaid by generations of Ukrainians. I'm Clayton Neville.
Tragedy at a Pennsylvania hospital, Bongino's new role, and frozen Detroit. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. At least 3 people died. 2 others are in critical condition after a boat capsized in the waters just off Staten Island, New York. 5 of the 6 occupants of the boat were pulled from the freezing waters after the vessel overturned around noon in the Ambrose Channel, the city's main shipping lane located between Staten Island, Brooklyn, and New Jersey. The Coast Guard dispatched rescue boats and helicopters after receiving a mayday call of a boat taking on water. The New York City Police Department's diving units also responded. Divers, as of late last night, were searching for another person who is still missing. Police report the water temperature in the area of the accident was just 36 degrees. A Pennsylvania community is mourning the loss of a police officer killed during a shooting inside a hospital by a lone gunman who was holding staff members hostage. Bob Brown reports 2 other police officers were wounded in the shootout.
A man with a gun and zip ties storming a UPMC hospital in York, Pennsylvania, heading to the ICU and taking staff members hostage. 5 people hurt. A doctor, nurse, and a custodian were shot, but all 3 listed in stable condition. Sadly, 30-year-old Andrew Duarte, a West York Borough police officer, was shot and killed by the gunman, identified as 49-year-old Diogenes Archangel Ortiz. York County DA Timothy Barker.
He went straight to the ICU. And in the ICU, this individual went and held hostage members of the UPMC staff.
That's when police moved in.
Holding her at gunpoint, coming out into the hallway, the officers, left with no recourse, did open fire and did shoot and kill Diogenes Archangel Ortiz.
Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro arriving at the hospital saying the officers heroically did what they had to do, putting their lives on the line.
I know that because they answered the call and ran toward danger, lives were saved.
The gunman was reportedly angry with hospital staff over the treatment of a relative in ICU. I'm Bob Brown.
President Trump announced that former Cumulus Media and Fox News talk show host Dan Bongino will become deputy director of the FBI, serving under newly confirmed FBI Director Kash Patel. Prior to his days on radio and television, Bongino was a member of the New York City Police Department, as well as the U.S. Secret Service, and is also an author and podcaster. The deputy director appointment does not require Senate confirmation. America in the Morning continues. A working-class neighborhood in Detroit is still recovering days after a water main break flooded basements and turned streets into an ice rink. Here's more from correspondent Jennifer King.
Crews in Detroit are working to fix a century-old water main that broke on Monday, flooding streets and homes and leaving dozens of families without power and heat. Crews have excavated around the site and ordered a replacement pipe section. The Great Lakes Water Authority says the water main won't be back in service for at least 2 weeks. The pipe burst while temperatures were below freezing, leading to surreal scenes of parked cars trapped in frozen water like an icy lake.
It just happens so fast.
Linda Hoskins' furnace and water heater were damaged, likely beyond repair when her basement flooded.
It was just pouring in.
Meanwhile, Claudia Ortiz is getting by with only a small space heater.
Sometimes I think I'm still in shock because everybody, like, how are you staying there? I don't even know if I really feel cold or anything. I'm just scared.
Detroit's mayor has offered hotel rooms and food to those affected and says the city will pay to clean out basements and for uninsured damage to furnaces and hot water heaters. I'm Jennifer King.
Big tech firms release more power-hungry systems like AI, and the power companies are finding it difficult to keep up with demand. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's tech news.
Increasingly power-hungry AI and computer network systems are causing a drain on the U.S. power grid. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has issued a directive to the nation's largest grid operators to provide clarity on how they handle co-location, a popular data center electricity agreement that allows computer warehouses to connect directly to power plants. Big tech is racing to expand their technologies like artificial intelligence, and co-location has presented a quicker route to accessing large amounts of electricity instead of spending years waiting in line to connect to a broader grid. Current guidance on co-location by grid operator PJM Interconnection appears to be insufficient, the FERC said in a commission's order last week. PJM expected 30 gigawatts of peak load to be added in the next 5 years, where one commissioner said a gigawatt is enough to power all the homes in a city the size of Philadelphia. Constellation Energy also filed a complaint last year stating insufficient guidance on co-location at its nuclear facilities. Find me on X at Chuck Palm.
America in the Morning's Robert Workman has Monday Sports.
NHL Sunday, Alex Ovechkin had a hat trick as the Capitals drilled the Oilers 7-3. That moves him within just 12 goals of Wayne Gretzky's all-time record of 894. The Russian machine still has his eyes on the Stanley Cup.
We don't look too far. We just looking game by game, and it's still like 20-something games left, and we just have to play the same way, try to win the games, and we'll see what happens.
Washington has the best record in the league with 25 games to go. Stars got a hatter from Jason Robertson and topped the Islanders 4-3. Robertson's brother Nicholas scored twice in the Maple Leafs 5-2 win over the Blackhawks. It was the first time two brothers had multiple goals on the same day since Pavel and Valerie Bure 25 years ago. Lightning won their fifth straight 4-1 over the Kraken. Devils blanked the Predators 5-0. Nico Dawes made 29 saves. Wins for the Rangers, Red Wings, Blues, Flames, and Utah. NBA, the Cavaliers won their seventh straight, 129-123 over the Grizzlies. Donovan Mitchell had 33 points. Thunder kept pace. They beat the Timberwolves 130-123, 37 for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It was a shootout in Atlanta where the Pistons got past the Hawks 148-143, 38 points apiece for Detroit's Cade Cunningham and Atlanta's Trae Young. Celtics, Warriors, Bucks, Pacers, Magic, Pelicans, and Raptors win. College basketball, number 10 St. John's handled Connecticut 89-75. And at the She Believes Cup in Glendale, Arizona, the U.S. defeated Australia 2-1. So the American women can wrap up a sixth straight title in the tournament with a victory on Wednesday over Japan in San Diego. That's Monday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. And stick around for this, a proud moment in women's college sports when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. The SAG Awards were held last night and could be a prelude to potential Oscar winners. Kevin Carr has a recap.
The Screen Actors Guild held its awards last night. If there was any takeaway from the evening, it was there is no clear frontrunner for Oscar Gold next week. Supporting acting awards went to Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain and Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez. However, it was the lead acting awards that surprised some.
I poured everything I had into playing this incomparable artist, Mr. Bob Dylan.
Timothy Chalamet finally picked up a win for his performance as Bob Dylan in A Complete Unknown. And Demi Moore won Best Female Actor in The Substance, reminding everyone of how unpredictable this category is this year.
The words are kind of beyond me, so I'm just going to have to just say thank you.
Honora cleaned up at the Independent Spirit Awards earlier this weekend, but went home empty-handed last night. Dark Horse Conclave took the top award for Outstanding Cast, with Ralph Fiennes delivering the acceptance speech.
People have spoken so eloquently and movingly about community. I don't want to add more, but I think we do recognize the supreme importance of it.
Jane Fonda was honored with a Life Achievement Award, and in true Jane Fonda fashion, she refused to shy away from politics.
Make no mistake, empathy is not weak or woke. And by the way, woke just means you give a damn about other people.
The television awards were mostly expected, with Shogun, Hacks, and Baby Reindeer taking away honors. However, there were some surprise wins for Only Murders in the Building, including Best Comedy Ensemble and Martin Short for Best Actor. I'm Kevin Carr.
Lesley University is a small private liberal arts school located outside Boston. And even though they're not known for their sports programs, one basketball player on their women's team made history, not because she scored a lot of points, but simply because she put on a uniform and played. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
Bailey Cinnamon Daniel is a guard for the Lesley University team in Cambridge, Massachusetts. She was born with one arm.
From what I believe and from other people have told me, I am the first Division III women's collegiate basketball player to make a basket in a game.
She made the shot near the three-point line.
It was an immediate feeling of relief because I was very happy that the shot went in and I could kind of, take a breather and just, remember to get back on defense. And then seeing the coach's reaction and the team's reaction was just a cherry on top.
Cinnamon Daniel got her second basket on her birthday. Not bad for a player cut from her high school team.
I started emailing hundreds of coaches, and it didn't really matter what division it was. I was just trying to get a possible maybe or, even better, a yes.
Cinnamon Daniel's team, Lesley, is having its best season in 14 years and has reached the playoffs. I'm Ed Donahue.
That's our show for today, Monday, February 24th, 2025. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.